So this morning I want to speak about the God that answers prayers. That is the God you serve. And I want you to know that He hears your prayers. Psalm 65 verse 2 says, "O you who hear prayer, to you all flesh will come." May the Lord bless the reading of His word. So this morning, I'm telling you that we serve a God who hears, a God who answers, a God who responds. Heaven is not silent. God is not distant. The throne of grace is not closed. Every prayer you have ever prayed, whispered, groaned, or cried matters to God. I want you to know that. Don't think that your prayers are unheard or that He's not doing anything about your prayers. I'm here this morning to remind you that your God answers prayers, not occasionally, but consistently, not reluctantly, but willingly, not slowly, but in the fullness of His perfect time. So point number one this morning, God is the one who invites us to pray. So before you ever prayed a prayer, God invited you. The book of Jeremiah, chapter 33, verse 3 says, "Call to me, and I will answer you, and show you great and mighty things which you do not know." Not "I may." God is not saying "I may." Not I'll think about it. But He says there, "I will." So the invitation is His. The instruction is His. And the promise is His. So prayer is not a religious ritual. It is a divine conversation. It's a divine conversation initiated by God Himself. So God is not bothered by your voice. He longs for it. He does not hide from your requests. He bends His ear toward them. Point number two, God answers because He cares. The Bible tells us in 1 Peter chapter 5 verse 7, "Casting all your care upon Him, for He cares for you." So God answers prayers because He's a loving Father, not a silent observer. When you pray, you are not trying to convince God to care. He already cares. Your tears do not intimidate Him. Your frustration does not offend Him. Your questions do not scare Him. He cares enough to answer Anna's bitter cry. He cares enough about Daniel's urgent intercession when he was in a bad situation. What about Elijah's bold prayer? He heard him. Ezekiel's desperate request, God heard him. What about the blind Bartimaeus when he shouted? What about the thief that was crucified with him? He had his plea. And He cares enough to answer yours. So don't ever think that God is not hearing or answering your prayers. Point number three, God answers in His way, His wisdom, and His time. Now, this is the part where believers struggle with the timing. The book of Isaiah chapter 55 verse 8 says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord." Sometimes God answers immediately, sometimes gradually, sometimes differently than you expected, sometimes by opening a door, sometimes by closing one, sometimes through miracles, and sometimes through wisdom, people, or processes. But he always answers. So whenever you pray, God says one of the three things. Yes, when the request aligns with his will. Not yet, when the timing is not right. And thirdly, I have a better plan. When he sees what you cannot see. So delay is not denial. Silence is not absence. Waiting is not rejection. The God that answers prayers is also the God that walks behind the scenes. Number 4, point this morning, God answers through supernatural intervention. Throughout Scripture, God shows that he is not limited by time, nature, circumstances, systems, human laws. He parted seas, shut lions' mouths, opened wombs, raised the dead, multiplied bread, and broke chains in prison. There is nothing in your life that is too hard for God to answer. Nothing that is too complex or too difficult for him to handle. That's why the book of Jeremiah, chapter 32, verse 27 says, is there anything too hard for me? Is there anything? And God is asking you this morning. He's asking you that question. Do you think that anything is too hard for me? Do you think so? Your situation is not beyond his reach. Your family is not beyond his mercy. Your healing is not beyond his power. Your destiny is not beyond his intervention. And point number 5, God answers those who pray with faith. That's why the book of Mark chapter 11 verse 24 says, whatever things you ask for when you pray, believe that you receive them and you will have them. So God responds to faith, not fear, not doubt, not wishful thinking. Faith. Faith is not denying reality. Faith is declaring God's higher reality. So faith is not emotional hype. Faith is spiritual confidence. Faith is the bridge that connects your request to God's answer. Faith says, he hears me. He will answer me. His answer is the best answer for me. That is faith. You may not see it, you may not feel it, but you believe. You believe that God has already heard me. That is faith. Point number 6, God answers to demonstrate his glory. Every answered prayer is a testimony. Every breakthrough is a sermon. Every miracle is a message. God is real. My brother, God is real. My sisters, God is real. Jesus said in John chapter 14,